You should be good to go.
Okay, thank you so very much. We do apologize for the delay, first of all, to the public. We are ready to start, so we're going to welcome each and every one of you to our first OBAFA committee meeting, starting for this new year that's coming in. First of all, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today's date, August 11th, for the Operation Budget and Physical Affairs Committee meeting. I am Belinda Queen, the new chair of this committee and the District 6 representative of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Thank you to everyone for being here this evening. I truly appreciate you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. At this time, if everyone would please introduce themselves, starting with the committee members, then Prince George's County Public Schools administration staff, and then the board office staff, so everyone can know who each and every one of us is. Again, I am Belinda Queen. I am the new chair, and I am the District 6 school board representative elected by the people. Thank you so very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Harris. I am the District 7 representative for Prince George's County School System and the vice chair of this committee. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Mickens-Murray now, or board member Mickens-Murray, and she can introduce herself.
Thank you so much. My name is Judy Mickens-Murray. I am a appointed board member at large, and I am sitting in just to get acclimated with the process. Thank you guys for allowing me. Appreciate it.
Ms. Boozer-Struther.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Pamela Boozer-Struther, member of the committee, District 3 Board of Education member.
Thank you so very much. And we'll go ahead and start with staff, and we're going to start with Mr. Howard Burnett.
Good evening. I am Howard Burnett. I'm the senior advisor to the chief executive officer, and also I serve as the chief negotiator for the Board of Education for union contracts.
Good evening. I'm Mike Herbstman, Chief Financial Officer. I'll turn it over to Ms. Howell next.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Howell. I'm the Budget Director.
Good evening, Sharaska Coleman, Associate Superintendent for Supporting Services.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Winston. I'm the Director of Internal Audit.
Mr. Saunders.
Good evening. I'm Rudy Saunders, Director of Transportation for Prince George's County Public Schools.
He may have been last, but he is definitely not the least. Thank you so very much, Mr. Saunders. I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, I want to take the time again to say thank you all for being here for this very important budget committee meeting.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I think we missed one.
Yeah, I'm Sam Stefanelli, Director of Building Services.
I'm sorry, Stan. How are you? I didn't see you. I don't know how I didn't see you on my computer. Yes, Building Services. Good to see that you were here. Okay, so at this time, we're going to go ahead and do the adoption of the August 11th, 2021 meeting agenda. May I have a motion to approve the August 11th, 2021 meeting agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Okay, thank you for that motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, if no nays, the motion has been carried forth. The agenda has been approved for today. Can we get approval of the June 15th, 2021 meeting minutes? May I have a motion to approve the June 15th, 2021 meeting minutes?
So moved.
I can second, because I was at that meeting. I know a lot of you like, I wasn't even a part of that committee, but that's okay. We do have a new committee, but we still can approve it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Can I get some ayes? Any nays?
Aye.
No nays? Okay, so the minutes have been approved. At this time, we will have public comments. We have one registered public comment speaker this evening, Mrs. Carolyn Nara. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right, but I'm sure she will pronounce it. But she's going to speak on Duval High School Booster Club funding. So at this time, can we have our one public speaker to join us?
She has not joined the meeting. I don't see her in the attendees.
No problem. If we see her in the attendees later on, we'll add her later. Let's move forward. Okay, so let's go to 3.0 of the agenda. we have discussion and action items, review and adoption of the 2021-2022 ABAFA Committee Work Plan. Again, I want to thank you all who worked hard with me on getting this work plan together as we go into a new year to do great things. And not only that, to make sure we're being physical, financial, and making sure we're doing the right thing with the budget department and making sure we're spending our money correctly. So at this time, if the work plan is being pulled up by our assistant. And if you want to, you can always also go on board docs, and you should be able to see this Operation and Budget Fiscal Affairs Committee work plan. You can see the agenda and our schedule going through the year. If you would like to, or if you have any comments, please join us. Any month you're able to sign up and speak. And if you have any concerns, you can always send us as board members or staff or emails anytime before any one of these meetings. Since all of you have had plenty of time to go over and review this, I would like to this time to see if I can have a motion to approve our 2021-2022 ABAFA Committee work plan.
Motion to approve the work plan.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so the motion has been made in second. At this time, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. No nays. Okay, so at this time, we want the ABAFA Committee work plan has been approved. Because I'm, of course, going to be ayes, so that's 3 votes. Okay, so that is 3.0. We are moving right along. 3.2. You can take that work plan down so we can see each other beautiful faces. Okay, at this time, we can put up the operating budget priority committee survey. Just to let you know what this is all about. I know normally as a budget committee, we do a committee survey to all of our board members and asking them for the top 3 or 5 priorities for the budget year. I wanted to do something a little different and creative because a lot of us are elected and appointed, not just we're elected by the community and appointed by community leaders like our county executive and our county council. And we want to make sure that our budget priorities are their budget priorities. So at this point, we are going to send, we're going to put a survey out, and the survey will give you, as our constituents, as our leaders, as our community leaders, an option to send back to us and let us know what your budget priorities are. I know as a board member, I see a lot of my constituents out in the community, and they're always sharing what their budget priorities are, which is good. But for the ones we don't hear from, for the ones who may be a little bit too quiet to share, and they do have certain priorities, this way we can list them together and we can look at it and make sure as a board that when we are voting on budget changes, or when I send in my budget priority, and I'll use just me as District 6 representative, because if you notice, it's going to be listed by district. If you can go down so they can see it. Aisha, the way the budget priority form is asking you what district are you in. So if you put you in District 6, I will be able to see as your District 6 representative what the budget priorities are for every one of my constituent in District 6. And then I would combine them, and then I would have to kind of like choose, make a choice, because we only get a couple of budget priorities. But we just want to make sure that we're doing the budget priority and make sure it is the priority of the people who we are elected to serve and represent. And we just want to let you know that we are listening. We do hear what you are saying, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to say your priorities before we vote on the priorities. So this survey will be going out. And at this time, we want to go ahead and have a motion to accept this. So may I have a motion to approve the FY 2023 Operation Budget Priority Committee Survey?
Yeah,
One question, if I may.
Yes.
One question, if I may, Madam Chair. How long is the survey available, and when is the deadline to fill in the information, just for the public? Or if there's none, then that's fine as well, but just so they know.
It is a deadline because, but once we post it, but Aisha, I think we had it on our work plan. Let's go back to the work plan.
Yep.
I believe the deadline was in September, correct? For our September work plan. So yes, the deadline is in September.
23rd.
Yes.
Okay.
I
So
believe
get those surveys in September 23rd.
Well, you wanted to make the deadline for the community survey early September, so that the
I
members
was
have
thinking
theirs.
September the 15th.
That's our meeting, so we can have the results by the meeting on the 15th. And then you were gonna ask for the board members to do their survey so we can have the results, recommendations into the administration by our October meeting.
Yes. So that's how we're gonna have, because we want to give the board members a chance to look over the priorities. So when they submit their priorities, they would actually know what some of their constituents. I'm sure each and every one of you, just like me, whether you're elected or appointed, if people see you out in the community, they tell you what some of the things they feel like is a priority. So we already know theirs, but for once we don't. And so once we combine them all together, we just want to make sure that moving forward that we are meeting the priorities of our constituents. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much for the first and the second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any nays? No nays. So the motion has passed. Okay, so at this time, the next step is, good thing, the school reopening update. So who has that? Is that Mr. Burnett? Oh, Mr. Burnett, yes. I'm sure a lot of people wants to hear about school reopening. People are so excited. We got some who want to send their kids back, some who don't, some who can't wait, and some who won't. So come on, let's give us the update.
Well, thank you, Chair Queen, and certainly, the staff, our 20,000 employees are certainly excited to welcome students back. And, keeping the focus on the budget and finance area for this committee, first, the administration on behalf of CEO and administration want to thank the board, the county leaders, state legislators, congressional leaders even, for the funding of our FY22 budget, because certainly it will be far-reaching to support the needs of the students and our community with both the operating budget and the federal funds, which Mr. Herbstman will talk about. And just some updates, and some important dates. Our new teachers return on August 24th. And they will be in service through the 26th. All teachers and school staff return on August 27th, and they have in service through September 7th, actually. And then, as you know, our students return on Wednesday, September 8th. We also have, as we started this year with the approval of the state, a limited enrollment virtual school program, approximately 700 students in grades 7 through 12. And then currently there are up to 900 elementary school students. And of course, we've received numerous calls regarding reopening, that option for parents. So we're waiting, certainly working with the state, because, as you all know, the state board determined that all public school systems in the state of Maryland would go back to in-person learning, and we were approved for the limited virtual learning program. As of today, as a matter of fact, 4:15 today, we posted on the web an opportunity for a wait list for both programs. And I think the grade 7 through 12 wait list ends that opportunity on August 17, and I think the elementary students, any parents that want to get on the wait list, that ends August 20th. So certainly we are inviting all to let us know of their interest, in case some options are available for those parents. So please take advantage of that on our website, and that's posted as of today. All of our unions, contrary to some of the unions around the state who are at impasse with their boards of education, all of our unions have agreements and are funded, for FY22. We have 3 unions that are funded for the next 3 years on negotiated agreements, and our teachers union and Local 2250 that has all of our support employees, their contracts end June 30, 2022, and they're excited as they engage, me and your team and the board to negotiate their new agreements. But fortunately, all of their agreements are funded, and our employees are pleased with their negotiated agreements. Soon we will post a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan on our web. It's a reopening plan. We've engaged both community members, staff, union leaders, and others to develop this reopening plan, which will soon post. It has all of the different areas in it: academics and student services, attendance, uniforms, athletics, teacher and staff support areas, technology, parent centers, mental and behavioral support, health and safety, school facilities, food services, transportation, addressing equity, communications, and also other areas. So that plan will be posted soon on our website so that parents and community can see all of those different areas and all that we're doing. We're taking all of the necessary safety precautions for our in-person learning. We will continue to have mask requirement for all of our students and staff. We'll have limited visitation, into the buildings. We have COVID testing on site at every school location for students and staff. We're promoting continually our vaccines. As of June 1, we had 12,000 of our 19,000 employees who had received vaccines, and I'm sure more, at this particular time. And schools, through the funding, that I mentioned, have all of the necessary PPE, sanitizing equipment, and so on, that I'm sure Mr. Stefanelli could speak to broadly in that area. So I'll stop there. There are many things that we're looking at and doing in preparation, but it looks great at this particular time with the administration and the board planning with us. I think you may have questions from your committee members.
Yes, we're gonna go ahead and open up for questions. I see Ms. Pam Boozer starting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Queen. Thank you so much, Mr. Burnett. I am very pleased with the announcement that today's announcement was that there could be extended seats for virtual, and that parents wanting 5 days a week for their children, that is not changing. That is very good news to many parents who have trust in PGCPS around keeping our children safe. And I, as a parent who did experience the hybrid at the elementary level and who still does have a son who is 11 years old and shy of getting that vaccine on his 12th birthday, I wanted to ask what might be the most significant safety changes, safety protocols or changes from hybrid, when we had about 30% of the students return, to whatever estimate of return that you're expecting for 5 days a week. What are some of the enhanced protocols?
Yeah, certainly, as I stated, we're going to remain with face covering for all students and staff. We have, and I know Mr. Stefanelli could speak to this, we have some wonderful sanitizing equipment. So every day after our students and staff leave the building services staff sanitize every area of the schoolhouse. So all areas are sanitized. We're still going to ensure that there's, appropriate social distancing, space for lunch, for students, and those are certainly some of the areas. And as I stated, any student or staff that have any type of COVID symptoms, the testing will occur. We'll continue to have the quarantine, days for both staff and students as necessary. And we'll also announce some additional information. We'll continue our vaccine clinics, that many students 12 and older have taken advantage of. We'll continue those opportunities. And as we know, adults, there's no line to wait in for adult vaccines these days. So we're still promoting those. We're continuing to give staff a leave day for their vaccination, those who, limited numbers who have not received the vaccine.
Thank you so much.
And also just on the transportation side, Mr. Saunders, and his staff have taken extra safety precautions, certainly for the ride to and from school, making sure that that students are safe.
That's a good point. So Mr. Saunders, since you did mention that, can you tell us what have y'all done to take precautions?
So during the summer, when we were transporting kids just for the summer programs, we started to do some things as far as training our staff and to ensure that we had PPEs for everyone. So our drivers and those buses that have attendants all have face masks. They have gloves for those individuals, particularly who interact directly with students, and for the attendants, the face shield that can come down, because we know there are some students that cannot wear masks, maybe for health reasons or due to their handicapping condition or whatever the case may be. So that helps to keep them safe. During the summer program, we also were able to put some extra cleaning measures in that we shall continue, which includes between each run, the drivers have the necessary equipment to spray down the bus each day, help to wipe down the high contact areas, and to get the additional ventilation through the bus by cracking at least a few of the windows to let some fresh air continue to circulate during the route.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. Ken, do you have any questions? I wasn't sure Mr. Harrison had any questions.
No, I'm okay now. I found my question. Thank you.
So I just have,
Chair Queen, just to let Sam take a couple of minutes.
no, trust me, I had some questions. Mine have to do with Sam.
All right.
Don't worry, Sam ain't going nowhere. So first of all, with you, I want to say I'm so glad to hear about the waiting list, because as board members, we've been actually hearing from so many community people who have really concerns, and that's why I said some who will and some who won't and some who don't want to. And I understand, and with the new variant coming out, so I'm glad to hear. I do have to say that we have one of the best CEOs, and one thing for sure, Prince George's County Public School has always taken a lead on things, and Dr. Golson has made sure that our community and our community members, our scholars and our staff have been safe. And she has always put the community first. So again, we thank her and the staff as always for listening to the community, because as the emails and the calls come in, she didn't just ignore them. You guys got back and you start working on it. How can we make things better for the staff? We know we do have a lot of children in Prince George's County Public Schools, and we do have a diverse community. So again, we say thank you all for making sure that we are listening to our community and we understand and we are meeting the needs of the community. But back to Mr. Sam, I just want to say I walked 5 of my schools so far, and I will be walking more. Hopefully I get them in there soon, but before the kids get back in there. But one of the problems I've noticed is it was supposed to be hand sanitizer at every sink, and I didn't see that at some of my schools. I only saw it at 1 out of the 5 schools I walked. And so my concern is, if we have these kids coming back, it's not half of the children, it's going to be more children coming back. And of course, when kids come back, and parents are going to be sending more bottled waters, because nobody's going to be drinking out of the fountain, and kids are going to be thirsty because it's still going to be a little warm. I'm just wondering, what are we going to do to make sure that our bathrooms have everything they need before the children do come back? If I've only walked 5 schools and only 1 out of the 5 had the hand sanitizer at every sink, I'm concerned about the other 23 schools of mine. I think I got 26 or maybe 20 schools of mine that I still have not walked. So I'm concerned about that.
Well, first of all, we don't have hand sanitizer at every sink. We have soap dispensers.
That's what I mean, the soaps.
We want to encourage the kids to wash their hands, because that's much better than sanitizing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant soap dispenser, but
Okay.
it was not at every sink. It was not at every sink.
Sure. What we originally did, I got an email from you, and we're investigating that. And I have 22 high school supervisors we are working with starting Monday. They're going to every school to do exactly what you're doing. Check to make sure everything is in place for the students when they come back in September. So we have 30 days to correct that. However, we will find situations where if a restroom has 3 sinks, we're not using the middle sink. We're only using the 2 outside sinks for social distancing. So you will find that there's only 2 soap dispensers in that restroom.
Okay.
Want to discourage them from using the middle sink.
Okay.
We are going to double check every facility. Just so you understand, we increased the amount of hand sanitizers to a minimum of 1 for every 10,000 square feet, which we installed last year. And we disinfect every facility every day as if there was a positive case in there. We originally were responding to positive cases by going in and disinfecting the facilities. And we found that by the time we got the results back for a positive case, people have already been in that facility for 2 or 3 days.
Mhm.
The Golson decided last summer to change our plans. So now every facility, every school, every classroom will be disinfected as if there may have been a positive case in there. So when we do have a positive case, we can react and take a little extra steps. But the occupants that have been in that facility between the time the person was in that room and the time at the positive case will be safe. So we're doing everything we possibly can. But I can assure you, my staff is going to be out over the next month. And if you want me to go with you, I will. That's what I'm doing too.
But that makes sense, now that you said, I'm sorry, you guys, I don't know why I turned my cameras off. I guess it just started raining here and I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't use power because I stated, and so the public will know, I live in a part of Capitol Heights and every time it storms, my electricity goes out. So if you guys lose me, then my vice chair is gonna have to carry on. But it does make sense because I believe it was the middle sink for some of these schools that so if we're not going to be using the middle sink, it just wasn't blocked off. So
Right.
it will make sense, a little sense if it was the middle sink that they.
And it may have not been blocked off because they were doing their summer cleaning in the restroom and they took everything down, cleaned the restroom, and they'll put it back before the students come in. But rest assured, we're going to check every nook and cranny to make sure we're covered. Our goal is to ensure that the students are safe, period.
And I appreciate that because, you know, even as community members, we go out and we're going out into our grocery stores and our box stores. And sometimes I hear a lot of people say, oh my God, I ain't gonna say the name of the store. And I feel like I'm getting sick after going to the store. We got to start going back to wearing gloves and, you know, and being a little bit more sanitizer. And that's how it's going now for people. So we got to be very careful because we're talking about sending the kids back. And everybody know I say it all the time, especially my grandkids, you guys, kids are germy. They just, something about kids, they just pick up germs. And so we got to make sure that we're protecting our babies because they are our future. And I say it all the time, there's nothing more important than our children because without them, we don't have a future. So can you tell us a little bit more, since you have the floor for this moment, about other things that you guys are doing to make sure that our children are being kept safe? I hear you saying they're going in. What about during the daytime as they, you know, may have to do lunch? I don't know how that, are we going into to clean any rooms any different, or we're not?
Well, as part of Dr. Golson's plan, we check the restrooms 3 times a day. And we try to sanitize the common areas. We have an electrostatic sprayer that we use in the evening to disinfect the facility. However, we do not want to make a habit of applying chemicals while the students are in the building. So we're only going to disinfect where needed in the restrooms and maybe in the lobby area. We have to be cognizant that the chemicals are also bad for the kids also. So we don't want to overkill. We originally were going throughout the day and spraying buildings down, and we found that just wouldn't be a healthy situation. So we were able to tweak the plan last year because of the virtual learning. We had a limited number of students in the building, which is allowing us to have a process now that'll work for all the students.
Thank you so very much. That was good you mentioned that because that was a concern I did hear last year with some people who had allergies and other concerns. And when it was being sprayed and things were being sprayed in the community, even for some of our staff, they felt like they were doing something to affect them. So we definitely want to make sure that we're conscious and make sure that we realize that we do have a diverse set of people, and what may bother one person may not bother another, but we have to be very careful in what we're doing. So thank you for saying that. That's very important.
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate you for your update. Is there no other questions? Okay, so that's for the school.
You got another hand up, Madam Chair. You got a hand up.
Okay,
Hi, Board Member Judy Mickens Murray. I can ask a question, correct?
Yes,
Is that
you can.
okay?
Yes, you can.
First, I'll give a compliment. It seems as though the operations has done an extremely good job at preparing our schools for return after the COVID. And we understand how scary the COVID is. And I applaud you for also having vaccines available. I think that is practical. I think to make it easy for communities, that's a wonderful thing. My question is for you, Chair Queen. May I accompany you on some of your visits to some of your schools, please?
I would love for you. I will make sure that I'll let my district liaison know as she's scheduled to make sure she put you on that schedule so you can accompany me to some of the schools. And I'll actually send you some of my emails for the ones I've already sent to.
And also for you, Board Member Harris, I would like to accompany
Yes,
you
ma'am.
as well.
No
Thank you.
problem, making a note of it now.
Thank you.
I do have a question, Madam Chair, if that's all right.
Yes.
Mr. Burnett, for the sake of the record and the public, can you restate one more time those deadlines that you guys released today as of 4/15? And the second thing, which is actually a question, is what are the distribution methods for how parents will find out, other than word of mouth and things of that nature? Or are there things in place for that?
So I just have a question before Mr. Burnett. For some reason, I just saw Aisha flash that the webinar just started. So did it just start for our public?
Unfortunately, yes, we were having some technical difficulties with Zoom. That pop-up just appeared to me too. I was just surprised as you were. That pop-up just appeared.
Okay, so we want to make sure we first apologize for everything that you have missed. And we'll try to make sure that we kind of wrap it up so you guys will know some of the things that you have missed. And we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Burnett.
Certainly, and I'll wrap in Mr. Harris's question in this response. Certainly I wanted to give, a brief update and first thank, both the board, our county leaders, state legislators, and congressional leaders for funding our FY22 budget. And certainly we're pleased with that. All of our unions and employees, the 19,000 employees, have agreements and they're pleased with that. I mentioned that new teachers will return on August 24th. All teachers and staff return on August 27th through September 7th, and then students return on September 8th. I mentioned that we have a virtual, school program, and certainly that rolled out in June. 700 students, grades 7 through 12, and approximately 900 for kindergarten through grade 6. As of today on our website, we have a wait list established for parents who may be interested now in the virtual school program. So please take that opportunity to register so that we will know your wishes and look at available options. On August the 17th for grades 7 through 12, that window closes, and August 20th for our elementary grades, kindergarten through grade 6. That window closes for them. As I mentioned, we are taking all precautions for the safe return of in-person learning of all of our students. As I noted, the number, approximately 1,400 who took advantage of the virtual school opportunity. That meant that 133,000 plan to return to in-person learning. And honestly, the challenge for us is getting the staff for the virtual school program. So, most of our teachers want to come back to in-person learning. We're beating the bushes to get enough staff members for the virtual school at this time. So certainly, as I mentioned, staff have as we started providing vaccines, and approximately 11,000 to 12,000 took advantage of that as of June 1, and I'm sure more have. Beyond that, we'll have face coverings requirement for all students, COVID testing in every school site for staff, and students as necessary, and all of the sanitizing and personal protective equipment available to students and staff in the schoolhouse. Did I miss anything, Chair Queen?
No, you said it. I noticed Ms. Boozer Struggle has a hand up. You have.
Yeah, I do. Thank you for letting me come back around. So one thing I did notice is that the links on the web page are linking to not going to the new Google Forms, which are the waitlist forms. They are still linking to that special scrib order special website for registrations. So that could cause some confusion if word can get to the web team to make sure the waitlist Google Forms are linked in those appropriate places.
Certainly.
Thank you so very much for noticing that. We will, if it's not up right now, you guys, it'll be up by tomorrow. So just pay close attention and just know that it will be working and it will be up, and you do have the opportunity if you would like to apply. One of the things that I did say earlier, we have been getting a lot of emails and calls from our constituents, some at this point, who has a little bit of fear in sending their children back. And our staff, our CEO and our staff have done a great job of meeting the needs and the wants of our community, of our scholars, and listening to our board members when saying, hey, this is what's going on. What can we do to assist these parents? And so again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Golson for always listening and putting the community and our staff and our scholars first, and making sure Prince George's County Public Schools is always first and doing the right thing for real. And she does a great job in putting the community and the scholars first. For her taking the time to open up even a waiting list for opportunity for some of the parents who are skeptical about their kids coming back is an awesome thing. So I just want to say to her publicly that we truly appreciate her and her service as our CEO, and her service in making sure that we're listening to our constituents and we're making sure that they feel safe and they know that Prince George's County Public School is putting them and their students first, as always. We also have someone from our bus, Mr. Saunders. Mr. Saunders gave us an update from transportation, I'll say buses, but transportation, about what has been going on and what has been done. So if you can give us a quick roundup so parents can know, since the webinar just started, how our buses will be safe for the kids, that you guys will be y'all will be transporting our most precious jewels back and forth to school.
Yes, thank you. So we will continue the practices that we began this summer for those students who did attend the summer programs or even the spring, where our buses are cleaned daily between each route. We have sprayers at each lot so that we can treat every bus every day at the beginning and end of the route. Our drivers have the PPEs necessary, one, to make sure they have masks and that they have masks available for any students who may happen to forget their mask. They have all the necessary equipment as far as gloves and or face shields for those staff members who are in particularly close contact with students during the ride. And the drivers wipe down the high contact areas between each run with the necessary equipment, the handrails, the seats, steering wheel, those kinds of things on a daily basis.
Thank you so very much. I know that's one of our main concerns is transportation, and making sure that our kids will be transported safe back and forth. And Mr. Sam, our maintenance department, are you still there? I believe people came in on a little bit on when we talked about how I started walking some schools, and I had just a little bit concerns about whether it was, and I said hand sanitizer, but you correct me, I meant hand soap. At every sink, and you did say it's going to be at every other, and the middle sink will be blocked off, and we do have it. And he also stated, Sam, are you there? Because I don't see.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you want to get, instead of me sharing what you said, you can tell us.
Yeah, and it may not be in every school. It really depends on how many restrooms they have. Schools where we could afford to lose that middle sink, we will. But some schools just have too many students, so we have to leave the middle sink open, and they will have soap at it. But we will either have soap or the sink will be blocked in every school. And our staff is going out beginning, like I said, beginning Monday, to check all the schools to make sure everything is in place and ready for the students to return.
Thank you so very much. And just in case it meant, you did say at the end of every day that we will still be doing a deep clean of every school, correct?
Yeah, we have these machines, they're called electrostatic machines. Dr. Golson gave us the funding to purchase those for every school. And what they do is it's kind of like powder coating with paint. Chemicals completely surrounds the underside of surfaces, the top of surfaces, and we're able to spray down the entire facility with a disinfectant that's approved by the CDC every day to make sure that if there happens to be a positive case in that facility, the students will be safe the next day. Because truth be told, we won't find out the student was positive for 3 or 4 days after they've been in the classroom if they go get tested.
Thank you so very much. So just to, I appreciate you guys for going over that. Judy, did you have your hand up, or that's just an old hand up? That's okay.
Board Member Queen.
Yes, how you doing, Dr.
I
Miller?
apologize. I'm on my phone and I don't know how to access the hand wave. So I apologize to
No
interrupt like that. I just wanted to ask a question of Mr. Burnett for clarification. Are we in need of more teachers for distance learning?
Yes.
Is that what I'm to understand? So has an advertisement been put out?
Yeah,
What can we do to assist the system?
And certainly, Chair Miller, we are certainly advertising. We're having drive-by opportunities. We're doing everything possible on a recruitment side to bring in more teachers. Now, realistically, across the country, there's a shortage of teachers, and we're fortunate that that our recruitment department has been doing a good job of bringing new teachers in. They've already hired approximately 450 new teachers. We have more than 400 degreed substitute teachers, but we are certainly the challenge, as I mentioned, is that, we're still looking for teachers to work in the virtual school program, surprisingly, because all of our teachers, 98% of them want to come back to in-person learning. So we are doing what we can to fill those positions. And certainly we'll make sure that things are taken care of by the start of school on September 8th.
Thank you. I thought you had said that. So I just
We even sent word out to all of our retirees of the last.
That's what I was getting ready to suggest.
Of the last five years, we sent messages to them because we have their addresses, asking them. We welcome them back because every school system is facing the same challenge, and we'd love to have some of our retirees to come back to us.
Thank you, and thank you, Board Member Queen.
Thank you so very much, you guys. We living in a time where times have changed. I remember it was a time where I felt like, and I'm, everybody know me, I'm straightforward, that people who were of age just needed to retire, and they wasn't retiring for the next generation. But now it seems like the next generation have plenty of jobs that are available. So you guys here, spread the word. There's plenty of jobs out there, not just as teachers, there's jobs everywhere. We need the next generation to step up and do the right thing, and let's making sure that we're taking care of our future generation, which are our children. So if you know someone who can qualify to assist us, who are awesome, and we want the best right here in Prince George's County. If not, we can help train them to be the best. But we definitely are in need of teachers for online learning. And I believe we're still in need of some bus drivers also, Mr. Saunders.
Absolutely.
And we're still
we're always recruiting them.
We're always recruiting, so please, we have to market it ourselves. But this time we're gonna take this little commercial moment to market.
And speaking of transportation, since we have a shortage, is it possible that we can establish a program for those who may be interested in driving the bus but are unable to get the CDL? Is there anything we can do to assist with that?
Yeah.
We already do that.
You're right.
Right.
Okay, I'm learning. I'm just trying to make sure.
Yes, we have paid training for individuals that come in. They obviously, we have to make sure they can pass the background test. But beyond that, They get their learner's permit, which is basically the written test. And we walk them through from the classroom section with rules of the road and procedures. And we even have driver trainers who take them behind the wheel of buses and teach them everything they need to do to walk them down to MVA to get their CDLs and begin working for us as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
We do a great job at that. I believe one of our biggest problems is, and I know it was before I was on the board, and since I've been on the board, is people come and they get their CDL and then they want to go work for Metro. I'm gonna say what y'all do. You come and use us and then you go somewhere else. We need you to come and work for our children because they are the ones who, because really we have to care about their the future. We need you to actually want to drive these kids to be role models, to be positive, think that we need to get them back and forth to school and educate them, because guess what? They're the next generation that's going to be doing your retirement check, and you want to make sure they get the best quality education possible. Okay, so now that we got that moment out.
May I make one comment about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Saunders, when we train these individuals, and Board Member Queen, that's a good point you brought up. Is there any kind of agreement that they have to sign that they will be with the system for at least 2 years after we have trained them?
So
I mean, a retention type of policy.
That's a great question. So we have talked about doing that. To be very honest, the problem has been the penalty part of enforcing that and chasing those people down to return the money if they leave or whatever. Sometimes we spend more trying to retrieve that than it's worth for the actual recoup. We just kind of hope that we can entice them during that window of time. And the one thing we stress to individuals that drive for us or that begin the class with us is, even though you can work, there are a lot of people who need CDL drivers. We're talking about Metro, people like the bus, the government, Amazon is here now. So if you have a CDL, it's like gold. And of course, every school district in this area is recruiting drivers. But the one thing we tell people is, the schedule that you have working for us is so much better than anyone else, especially for those who have children, because you're going to be on a schedule similar to your children. You're going to be off when they're off. You're not going to have to worry about weekends and evenings and those types of things. The other thing that we tell a lot of people is, we use the best example we can have is the terrible situation we just came through with the pandemic, when our drivers are actual county employees, and we were able to maintain paying them throughout this whole time. A lot of employers weren't able to do that. They laid people off or at least didn't pay them. And the security of having that and working their way towards benefits and retirement, we hope is a major lure. We've done a lot of things with salary to make it competitive with other districts in the area. So I think we've made a lot of headways in that direction.
Thank you.
That is so great to hear. So at this time, we're just gonna do a little recap of, because we were actually on, what, 3.3? We were just doing the school update. So we gotta go back a little bit. We did call the order and everybody did introduce themselves. I believe our names are on the screen so you can see who we are now. I am the new chair of the budget committee, and Mr. Harris, wave as the vice chair. Okay, so we adopted and approved the agenda, and the agenda is what we're going for, and you can see the agenda on board docs. We also already did the minutes from June 15th. Our public speaker, we had one public speaker and she was not present. Is she present at the time? She's still not present. So just to go back to 3.0, we did a committee work plan and we did adopt and approve the committee work plan. You can go check out committee work plan out on board docs. And we also, which is very important, we did a budget priority community survey, and it has been approved by the budget committee. You can go back and check that out also on board docs. I'm excited about this. It's the first time it has been done on this budget committee. But this survey, just to give you a brief update of what it's for, we also always do budget priorities as board members. We have our top 3 to 5 budget priorities, and then we turn them in, and then the budget committee have to break them down to whatever the top priority is. And then we go in with the CEO and her staff, and we try to make sure we reaching these top priorities and we squeeze it into the budget. But this year we wanted to do something different. We wanted to make sure that that we're here, we listen and hear from you, even though we do all the time, because a lot of you we see out in the community, you're stopping us, you're saying, hey, I need this at Lago, or this, I'm gonna throw this out there, I hear this all the time. Lago needs field, the turf field needs to be done better, or Thomas Pullen it's a performing arts school and we don't even have a place for them to really to perform their arts at. So I hear these things all the time. So what we're doing, we're sending the survey, and per your district, the survey is listed for districts. You can send in your top priorities for the budget. And so we will see this as a whole, each and every board members, whether we were elected or appointed, we all are going to see the top priorities that come in from the community. We all already hear the ones you have been saying to us out in the community, and we're going to put these together to make sure that when we make a decision for our top priorities, that the top priorities will be the priorities of what we're hearing from our constituents, the ones who elected us, who appointed us, or whoever we're serving in the community. But we'll make sure in 2021, going in 2022 years, that our budget top priorities are the priorities of our community. So definitely the survey is going to be definitely listed on our board, Prince George's County Public School Board of Education. Go on the board and board docs and definitely get the survey, fill it out and send it in, and let us know what your top priority is. So each and every board member, whether it's a board member in your district or whether it's an appointed board member, we all will see these top priorities, and we'll make sure that we are actually being accountable and fiscally responsible to make sure that we are meeting the priorities of you, our constituents, of our scholars and our staff. So that's the update on that. And the only other thing we did, I believe we don't caught up on now, is what we were just talking about, is we were going over school updates. And you guys heard some of the school updates, and we did a review of that. So at this time, we're gonna move a little bit forward, and we're gonna have our budget moment with the COVID-related funding and the spending, which is so very important.
Thank you, Chair Queen. Good evening, everyone. For today's budget moment, Committee Chair Queen has asked administration to report on COVID-19 related funding and spending. Though what you have in board docs is a pretty thorough 28 slide presentation, and there's a lot to cover. Nearly all of this information has been presented several times publicly in board and committee meetings. So I'll run through it quickly, and in a couple places, I'll just tell you where you can view the more detailed presentation that we did. So we're just going to briefly outline the federal COVID-19 grant programs, then discuss the budget spending by grant, and go a little more in depth on just a few of the many grant-funded student-centered initiatives. Then I'll talk a little about where we are, where we're able to achieve some general fund savings last year and how we use those funds to help us going forward. For an overview of the federal grant programs, so there are three primary sets of federal legislation that we either have received awards from or anticipate in the coming months. First, we have the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, known as the CARES Act. Then the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act, and most recently, the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP. To really oversimplify this, the major focuses of these programs at the federal level, CARES was about getting to a place where students and staff had the technology and internet access to work virtually at the end of the first school year and the beginning of this last school year. CRRSA was intended in part to move students and staff back towards more in-person instruction. And ARP is about moving forward in the new normal and mitigating and addressing learning loss from the pandemic. So that's really oversimplified, and all of these grants include all of those things and a lot more. One important thing to note is that the funding was not available immediately when the legislation was passed. So a good example of this is ARP was actually enacted 5 months ago today, and we're just awarded the first partial approvals on several of the smaller grants here, still waiting on the largest grant. So far, we've received grant approvals for the CARES Act and CRRSA grants, totaling about $187 million, most of that coming recently through ESSER 2, which is about 2/3 of that grant amount. We're still waiting for approval on the vast majority of funding out of ARP, But when we receive everything, we're expecting that we'll have a total of 14 grants totaling a little over $500 million in funding over the next 3+ years. For each of these grants, I'm going to tell you a little about the grant, the allowable uses, and the actual and planned uses. We've highlighted 6 key priorities on our uses of overall COVID grant programs, addressing student learning loss, transformative technology and equitable access, mental and behavioral health, COVID-19 student and staff safety, teacher and staff supports, and instructional materials and curriculum delivery. So for each of these, as we go through the slides, you'll see in the top right corner which of those the particular grant addresses. And for some, like this first one, it's all of them. So the first grant was ESSER 1, totaling about $30 million, including an amount reserved for private schools. The allowable uses for the ESSER grant fund are fairly broad. They've continued to expand as new funds have become available under ESSER. Rather than going through the 20 allowable uses, I added this as an appendix in the last 2 slides for everyone to reference. But the takeaway really is that the ESSER grant is fairly flexible. As long as a cost is directly related to COVID-19, it likely is allowable under one of the 20 uses. So this ESSER 1 funding was used primarily for student staff devices early in the pandemic, internet access for students, cleaning, and some of the things that Mr. Stefanelli had just talked about, personal protective equipment, summer school programs, and trauma-informed care. Next, we received $2 million under the Gear 1 grant for K through 12. For this one, it had broad allowable uses, but the state encouraged using it for technology. This is another early one in the pandemic. We did use it for that technology, particularly for student technology and broadband access. We also used this for several of the software license we needed early in the pandemic and have continued to need, such as Zoom is a good example. The first Gear Innovative Approaches grant required us to write a competitive application for an innovative way with re-engaging our students. We were awarded this smaller $400,000 competitive grant, specifically for partnering with some community organizations to re-engage our high school students and provide them with the additional programming. We also received 2 grants from the U.S. Treasury Department that had very short periods of availability. These grants had to be spent by December 2020. The first was specific to technology, and we used this to, again, procure Chromebooks towards our one-to-one student devices. And the next Treasury grant was the tutoring grant, which is for teacher-provided student supports, technology-driven tutoring programs, and additional summer instruction, much of which we are continuing under other grants because this was so short-term. Then moving into the CRRSA, beginning with the ESSER 2. This one has the same sort of broad allowable uses that were outlined in those slides at the end of the appendix, but it is fairly broad. This grant extends 1 year later than the original ESSER 1 grant. So it takes us to September of 23. So really we could use this money for 2 additional years. Some of the critical uses so far include additional technology, out of classroom instructional programs, compensatory recovery services for students with IEPs, mental health staff training, and building quality and safety projects. Of all of these grants that we'll talk about tonight, ESSER 2 will likely require the most extensive amendments as we move forward in the next couple of years. There's also a Gear Innovative Approaches 2. This was another competitive grant, very similar to the other innovative approaches one. We were applied and were awarded the grant to expand our program that we had in the first one for high school, expand that student re-engagement program to our younger students in K through 8. Finally, under CRRSA, we received another smaller grant called Broadband for Unserved Students. This allowed us to purchase internet access for about 10,000 families for the short duration of this grant, about 4 months. And those services have since been extended through the other grants that we have available for COVID. Then we have the grants under the American Rescue Plan that we have not yet been fully awarded. By far the largest of these is the ESSER 3 grant, which includes well over half of the total funding that we're talking about today for all of the COVID grants. That's $275 million. We are on an extremely tight time frame for this one, with the application due next week on August 17th. There's been a public survey open to receive additional ideas for this grant. I highly encourage any students, parents, families, teachers, staff, school system partners, really any community members to complete this survey. We have sent this out through various means, but there's also a link available in this presentation here for anyone that hasn't already received it. This will help us with our, not just the ESSER 3 application, which will be turning in soon, but also as we know that we're going to need to amend other ones of these grants, and looking just at our overall budget for our grants and non-grant programs. So we just want to highlight a few key initiatives because we're not able to fully detail everything that we just went through. The first one is on the mental health services in our schools. Prior to COVID-19, we all recognize the necessity of expanding mental health supports to students, and the pandemic has, of course, only intensified this need. Last year, we provided regular therapist support at 93 of our schools. By 2024, with the help of both the federal ESSER funds and the Kerwin Concentration of Poverty grant, all schools will be supported by a full-time therapist. This chart kind of outlines the strategic rollout plan. So as the grants, sorry, you can see in the gray here how many schools will be served by a full-time therapist in each of the years. As the grants do conclude, we'll continue to prioritize mental health, and we'll have to sustain this using our general operating funds. This will be a big investment in FY 2025. That means that we will be funding this with approximately $15.1 million. And we're prepared to absorb that as the grants go away using the increases from the Kerwin side and the state formula funding. While all of our students throughout Prince George's County Public Schools are in need of additional supports, we do recognize that there are specific heightened needs at the Bridge to Excellence schools. Within the Bridge to Excellence schools, we will focus in a little further on children in grades 3 through 9, based specifically on their performance data. And those students will be offered extended learning opportunities 3 days per week from October through April for the next 2 years. Of course, as schools return to predominantly in-person learning, all of our students require additional instructional supports. This will continue to be the focus of the majority of our upcoming federal COVID-19 funding, as well as some specific state supplemental instruction and tutoring funding. In all, in the grant side, we'll spend a minimum about $100 million in grant funds to address student learning loss. This will likely increase past this number as we complete that ESSER 3 grant application in the next week. For several years before the pandemic, we have been expanding our stock of student devices and really working to the eventual goal of becoming a one-to-one district. The long-term plan was accelerated last March as we were forced into distance learning. But becoming a one-to-one district was not only important to distance learning, it's also critical as we move forward, and all of our students have direct access to our many digital learning capabilities. However, now that we have a much larger stock of devices, we need to replace them every 4 years. So we have updated our refresh plan to account for this long-term liability. So through FY24, this will be funded through the COVID-19 relief grants. And then it'll be reabsorbed by our general fund lease purchase agreements in FY25 and sustainably beyond that. Outside of the grant world, we also wanted to reiterate some of the earlier discussions that we've had about the general fund savings and uses of those funds. Because we won't have time to go into the line item details tonight, encourage the public or anyone listening to revisit some other presentations on this available through board docs. That includes the December 10th, 2020 CEO's proposed budget, the June 10th, 2021 CEO's recommended operating reconciliation, and then the March 25th, 2021 financial review and the May 12th financial review. In those, we really get into the more line item details of the amounts that we saved and redirected. So with the decrease in projected state and county funding for COVID for FY22, budgeting this year was significantly more difficult than prior years. So between the CEO's proposed budget and the Board of Education's approved reconciliation, there's a need for a total of $156 million in reductions. The plan to balance the budget included identifying approximately $60 million in savings in FY21, the year that recently ended, in order to help close the budget deficit for this year that we're starting now, FY22. So these savings were ultimately achieved. First, I do want to mention that the vast majority, over 84% of our general fund budget, goes to employee salaries and benefits. This did not change at all during the pandemic, as we continued, as I believe Dr. Saunders was talking about before, we continued to retain and pay all of our employees throughout the pandemic. However, there were other opportunities for savings. Last September, almost a year ago, Dr. Goldson presented the board with 3 immediate actions. First, she drastically reduced overtime beginning in early October. Second, she froze hiring for all positions outside of schools. And third, schools were asked to rework their discretionary budgets. Additionally, due to COVID-19, there were savings from areas like athletics, utilities, vehicle maintenance and gasoline, conference travel, meetings and catering, and several other areas. This allowed us to exceed that $60 million savings target, need to balance the budget. And these savings really went first, 15 million went to supplement our food and nutrition fund for student meals. 30 million went to strategic pre-purchases, really payoffs of lease purchase payments that would have been due in FY22. We paid off in FY21 so that we could close that 22 budget. And similarly, we made a $15 million contribution to our other post-employment benefit liability, or OPEB liability, that would have otherwise fallen in FY22. We did that in 21. So in short, we targeted significant savings last year to reduce this year's deficit. And finally, before I open up to committee questions, just want to remind everyone that the COVID-19 funding survey is still open through tomorrow. We'll run that right up till midnight. And there's another link here in the at the end of the presentation if anyone doesn't have it already. And I'll turn it back to Chair Queen for committee questions and comments.
Thank you so very much. Let us market that again, you guys. The COVID survey is on Prince George's County Public Schools. Please go and fill that survey out. It's an important survey. Time is short. I believe we are our best marketers, and we're asking you to call your family members, call your church members, call your coworkers and say, hey, take the time and fill that survey out. Do any of the board members have any questions? No questions? I get to dive right in. Okay. So my first question is, what community organizations we partner with? It was one of the grants, I believe it was the Easter 2 grant that you said, y'all gotta excuse my phone, that a community organization, we had a community organization we partnership. And I don't expect you to tell me now, but can we get a list as board members of the community organization so we can know who we have partnership with? So that is something I do want to know when we have these grants and funding. Who have we as Prince George's County Public School? What are some of the organizations that we have partners with? So
that was that the re-engagement grant that you're talking about there?
It was one of them grants.
Okay.
You said it was some community partners that we had partnership on the grants. So I would like to know who these community partners are. So whenever you get a chance, if you can send us to us as board members, because we would like to know. I think it's important to us that we make sure as a school system that, you know, it's good for us to partner with people, but we need to make sure some of the people we're partnership with are local people. And we're using our money a lot locally for the grants and make sure that it's staying within Prince George's County to be used toward our students, parents, and people in our communities who need money. And so they can strive within Prince George's County. So I'm just really curious, and I just want to make sure that we're being physical fit. And you'll hear me keep saying that, to make sure that we're using our money wisely, but we're using our money within our county. So if we can just get them know that, so we can know, and so we can make sure that money is being spent wisely within Prince George's County. And the next question, the outer classroom instruction program. I got something on here. I know you said it was a couple of outer classroom instruction program and some that was going to be coming up a lot more soon. So you had grants and some money that was coming up for that, I believe it was. So I just want to know how many more outer classroom instruction programs will we be having to help people to catch up? And I know people keep saying, let's not say call it a learning loss, but let's have our students to catch up so they can be more advanced instead of keep saying a learning loss. So I know that you had talked about outer classroom instruction program, and that was a grant, I believe, that was coming up soon, or has it already came up?
So those programs were specifically at the very beginning or the pandemic. I think actually the beginning of last fall, but we will have many more opportunities too. And most of those will end up coming through the ESSER 3 grant application that we're going to be applying for next week.
Okay, and I have 2 more questions before I let Pam, I see you, Pam. So dealing with, I know you said you had one grant and we have money that we would be able to spend and some of the things that we can spend it on. So one of the questions is, can the ESS or ESSER grant be used for signing bonuses for the teachers that we need for the virtual classrooms? Because that is a COVID reason. Students, parents don't want their kids to come back right now. So maybe for the ones that we get now for the online learning, is there a way that, and this is something I'm just asking this question, you can go back to staff and you guys can find out. So this is a suggestion that maybe we can be able to use that to get a signage bonus that maybe people will come and want to be an online teacher. So that would be one related. And my next question is going back to transportation. Because of COVID, could money also be used for some of our schools like CMIT who don't have bus transportation at this point? And because of COVID, instead of them coming in, riding in all these different cars with all these different germs, Is there a way that maybe some of that could be used to provide transportation for some of the schools that don't have transportation and have been looking for us to provide some of the transportation?
So on the first question regarding the signing bonuses, I know that the state and really federally have been saying that most of these won't be allowed when we're talking about strictly increasing employee salary or providing bonuses. That's really the one area that's a little more difficult to fund. I know that there have been some articles recently about people trying to use not ESSER funding, but other state grants at the state level to fund salaries going forward. But the state grants are very different because they do allow the states to use it much more broad and to recoup lost revenue. So as you read those articles, I would just suggest anyone read those, that they see the differences between how local school systems can use the funding and how states can use the funding. For the question on CMIT, we have charter agreements with our charters, and we actually have been meeting with them over beginning last week about how we are going to help them to how we are going to help get funds from these grants to them. And what we're doing is primarily giving them per pupil amounts out of these grants and then monitoring it. Under our charter agreements, we don't have the ability to tell them to specifically to use it for transportation. But they will have equal funding under their equal share of these total grant amounts. Then that is something that they would be able to do with it.
Thank you so very much. I just wanted to throw that out there. I know we hear a lot of questions from parents and they just want to know why our charter schools aren't being provided transportation. And so they do get the pupil amount per spending, and I guess it's up to the schools to decide how the money is going to be used, whether they use it for transportation or not. But I did want to throw that this will be a great opportunity for them to use some of that COVID spending money for safety issues, for kids to be able to be picked up safely and brought back home safely on our clean buses. And I'm not right. Is that right, Mr. Saunders? And we say the bus is going to be real clean. But thank you so very much. All right, Ms. Boozer, I'm board member Boozer Struggler, and then board member Murray.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Herbstman, and your team for the excellent presentation. And I really appreciate this and more background on why we were taking the survey. I think sometimes it's very hard to have parents tune in August on a survey, but you really have given me a much better understanding of that this is real input. You know, parents are seeing the priorities to help with this final application for ESSER 3. The one question I have is, at what point will it be public what we will be asking for sort of at a line item level for ESSER 3? Will it be on the application side or when you get the final announcement so that you could come back to the rest of the board and the school system to say, this is what's funded? Because I know as a board member, I got some insights into some air quality HVAC that's in there. I don't know the specific schools, but I can see this large dollar amount that will make a big impact on air quality. So I just want to know when we can get that, what will be some very good news back to the school community.
Yes, so I think to make any announcements, we're going to wait till after the state actually approves the funding, just to ensure that that's what we end up with. Right now, we're still sort of moving things around a lot because we are getting input from a lot of different places. And of course, we will get the survey results tomorrow, and we'll use that as well to look at what we're currently planning to fund and how much that needs to change. So I think in terms of actually announcing anything publicly, we'll wait not only to submit it on the 17th next week, but also for the state to actually approve it. There might be some things that they say are not allowable. We don't think based on what we apply for that that'll be the case, but don't really want to make that public until we have it confirmed. So that likely will be in mid to late September.
Okay, great. That's not too much longer, so that's good news. Thank you.
Board Member Murray.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Hertzman, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm extremely impressed with your presentation. It's in depth. You've given us a lot of information, and even though I'm not familiar with all of the specific grant programs, I'm just impressed with the attention to detail that you and your team have played. My question is, as far as the grants are concerned, monitoring the grants, because we want to make sure that we don't give any money back. We want to use all of the grant money. So, strong team that monitors these programs.
Yes, so there are many members of our staff that are working on the monitoring side. It is primarily people that this is newer to, because this is new to everyone right now, but that starts with Dr. Libby and the strategic initiatives team is meeting individually with all of the program managers under these grants to ensure that they continue to spend. We also, as part of those meetings, we have these regular check-ins with our grants financial management team, our I can't think of the acronym for SPRM, but the grants team under accountability and others to make sure that first of all, the big push has been to get all these applications out, because as I said, it's been 14 grants. They come in and we have a week or two to really align things system-wide and get them into application form, get all the signatures and get them in. But on the back end, all of the individual program managers are continuing to spend, and we are monitoring that spending to make sure we're able to spend it on time. The good thing with some of the programs that are coming up now is on the ARP side, we do have a little more time to think about it, kind of knowing what's going to be allowable in the grant, because the biggest one, Esther, is really the same allowable uses that we were expecting. So there's a little more planning time, and there's also a lot more time to actually spend the funds. So that last one, Esther 3, will be available until I believe September of 2024, so a little over 3 years from now. And that's put us in a good position where we're able to really think strategically about how this fits in with Kerwin and some of our other funding sources, because we don't want to start to fund things that aren't going to be sustainable unless they are specifically to address learning loss over the next couple of years. So a couple of those examples you saw about continuing to fund our student devices, continuing to fund our mental health supports, because we do have a little more lead time with this, we're able to do that. We also, as part of the budget that the Board of Education passed in June, during that reconciliation, we asked for additional positions within our general fund using the indirect costs that we receive from these grants in order to create more positions that will be on the more monitoring side. So that's within our grants financial office, within our grants office, and under student services for some of the mental health grants. To ensure that as we move forward with these funds and with Kerwin, and we'll have a lot of accountability under both programs, that we'll be able to appropriately monitor those.
Good, I appreciate that. And finally, I don't know if this question is for you or if it's for Mr. Burnett, but has the district looked at contracting from organizations that do virtual teaching to get the extra complement of staff that we may need in the interim? Have you looked at contracting teachers at all?
We actually, Board Member Murray, have the state of Maryland has a network system for virtual learning. So some of our courses and offerings, so that we can have a broad spectrum of courses for our grades 7 through 12, will be offered through that network. So certainly we're looking at all opportunities and looking at the necessary virtual programs. Right now, the state does not, allow school systems to have hybrid, programs, and certain areas of contracting out. We have to stay, appropriate with regard to our unions. But there is a network system that that we can access that's available to us, where some coursework will be taught that way.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I would be interested in knowing a little bit more about that network program.
Sure.
Okay, thank you guys. But this has been very, very enlightening, at least for me. And I like budget, so thank you.
Oh, welcome, 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 welcome. I'm glad you said it and not me, because when she started saying contract, I was like, union. You know me, Mr. Burnett. Okay, so is there any other questions? Dr. Miller, you ain't got no questions? I can't hear you. Okay, so I guess you don't have any questions. You didn't hear anything at this time. So let's see. COVID-related funding and spending.
My mic was off, Board Member Quinn.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, but I just like to commend the team on this excellent presentation. It's quite informative and enlightening. And you talked about contracts. Yes, we have to be cautious with that as well. But our team, I think we have a team that's aware of what all the state and local policies are. So we're good.
Yes, thank you.
The only thing that, excuse me, the only thing that I would add to that is I understand, but we're in difficult times and we can't allow our children to suffer because we're in difficult times. So maybe a conversation with the unions, because everybody needs help right now. Yeah. So we need to look at all things.
It's really great at having conversations with the
Yes,
unions.
we need to have conversations.
So we have some awesome, I have to say, Prince George's County Public School had some awesome unions, all of our unions, and they're good at working with us to make sure that the needs are met. I know, I may be jokingly saying this, I support the union wholeheartedly, but in all honesty, they make sure that the needs of our staff and our scholars are met. If the staff is needed more help, even as unions, they make sure that the needs of our students are met. And not just Prince George's County Public Schools going out there, Dr. Golton and her staff, but the unions also are searching also to bring people back. So we are all working together because it takes us as a community. Go ahead, Mr. Burnett.
And that's a great point, Board Member Queen, Chair Queen, because on the virtual school program that we developed, our Teachers Association worked hand in hand with us on a weekly basis to give ideas and to work with us on that program. So you're right, and Board Member Mickens Murray, you can be comfortable that the unions are working collaboratively with us, and we involve them. Just as I mentioned that reopening plan that will be posted, we've involved all in that, and they certainly have been partners with us.
Thank you so very much. Thank you all. We all doing a great job as we move on to 3.5, our CIP moment. So who we got for that? Nobody's on the hot spot for the CIP moment. Is that you, Mr. Coleman? No.
No, I think the main thing that we want to highlight as far as the CIP program, since it's just a brief moment, as you all know, board members, that's posted for first reader for tomorrow, our FY 2023 through 2028 capital improvement program. So fortunately for our community and all, they can go online and look at that program. The board will, certainly receive it tomorrow at the board meeting as a first reader. And then on September 2nd, the board will have the opportunity to discuss that plan and to vote on the finality of that plan. It's not due to the state until, the end of September. So we're well in line with the guidelines of the program, but please take the opportunity to go online to look at that program that's in detail for you.
Thank you. Well, I do have a lot of questions for our CIP moment. And so I'll say some of them, but we'll bring some of them back. I know you're gonna have a budget a moment CIP. We're gonna go over a lot tomorrow. But as going in with the new, being the new board budget chair, I actually want to get the MEA the copy of our last 3 years state yearly request explanation when they do a maintenance inspection. I know they do a one. So for the last 3 years, I will actually, we would like as the board to actually go over the last 3 years to see what has been done, where we can do improvement at, what is needs to be improved on, and what schools are where. I also would like to see, as far as the active projects that we have now in CIP, we would like to have a list of them as the board, what projects that we have active and what projects are in closeout phase. We want to know what's active and what's in closeout phase. And I know as a budget committee, as a person who was on a budget committee before, we have asked this once before. I asked for us to go over any schools that, and I'll use Family Heights for instance, was the last school that that I know that was built, and it still has not completely been closed out. What kind of CIP mistakes have been made, what we can do better on, what's still left to go on with Family Heights. We want to update. I still haven't forgot that. I think we need to be very concerned as we talk about our P3s and our CIP moments and the schools that we're going to be going for. We want to make sure that I said that we're being responsible and making sure that we're actually doing the right thing when we're spending taxpayer dollars, and we're making sure that we're using this money wisely for any of our schools. And it's a couple of more, and I'll actually send it because I want to know a little bit about the cost square foot of some of our schools like Cherokee Lane and William Worth and Glen Ridge and what's going on. I've been looking at a lot of things. So I just want to make sure that when we talk about our CIP projects, that we're making sure that money that is being spent wisely. And we do everything that we can to make sure that we are actually spending this money wisely. So I won't ask you all them questions now, but I do have a lot more and we'll bring them up later. So we'll move forward for a little bit more because I know you took down what I said, and if not, I'll send it to you. Okay, so moving forward, that is the end. We're on 4.0, which is the follow-ups and next steps. One of the new things is as a budget committee, I asked to add what you guys see. 4.1 is called Good of the Order. That is something new that's going to be on every budget committee meeting. And just so the new members would know who were not at our meeting, the good of the order means anything that's good for the good of the order, whether it's for the good of Prince George's County Public Schools, whether it's for the good of the order of the week. We just want to have that for the good of the order minute where we're able to share anything that's for the good. See, good, not bad, you guys. For the good, let me express that, of the order. So for the good of the order today, I just want to share, and if someone else had something else they want to throw in, is that I love you dearly and I appreciate you, Ms. Berkeley, but we're going to make sure for the good of the order, the next time the webinar is started on time, you guys. And if we see it's not started, as board members, we can say, hold up, all of us, you guys, I didn't see that webinar started. So we can't blame it on one person for the good of the order. So our public will not be missing parts. So for the good of the order, we all have to be accountable to make sure that our webinars are being started so the public is able to see. So that's one of the things that we're gonna do, and we're gonna put for the good of the order. So our next board meeting, we're all, each and every last one of us, staff and board members, and all of us on here, visitors, we're gonna make sure that for the good of the order that the webinar is started, okay? Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
For the good of the order, Madam Chair, I would suggest that we as board members commence our meetings 15 minutes prior to the start time for the public. Therefore, if there are any technical difficulties, we would be able to iron them out and then proceed on time with the other meetings. So that's for the good of the order.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We tried to do that. Most of us was here 10 minutes before time, but we were still waiting for some board members for the good of the order. If we could find y'all for being late, we wouldn't have that problem, right, y'all? Y'all know I'm gonna say it. But thank you so very much, Madam Chair. If there's not anything else, I want to say thank you guys, all of you guys, for such a great first meeting. It was so enjoyable. I really appreciate you for being here. So at this time, may I have a motion to adjourn? Y'all don't want to leave me?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, well, thank you for the motion to adjourn. It's been properly moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye. Thank our public and every one of you. I want to say everybody have a good night, be safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow for our regular meeting. Bye-bye, good night.